Welcome to Nugget 176 with Steve Groman. And if you haven't listened to Nugget 175, we want to encourage you to do that. That is the beginning of this series with our friend David Clifford, who is the machinist for the Mount Washington Cog Railway. Let's start with the Saturday that we went and visited with you. We hopped out of the car and you met us.
Well, we're standing outside of the original Cog Railway terminal building. This was used for many years, everything from selling tickets to manufacturing to sending people up the mountain. It was kind of an all-in-one hub, so to speak. Outside in front of the building, we have the number 2 engine, which is parked out here, ready to go up the mountain. We've just finished a complete inspection and rehab on this piece of equipment last year. That entails a complete boiler inspection by certified boiler inspectors. They came up, they had to do a little bit of rehab work to it, which I found to be quite fascinating. These welders are remarkable. These guys that go in and they cut out the old stay bolts and weld in new stays and do thorough ultrasonic inspection of the boilers to make absolutely certain that this 1860s vehicle still meets today's tight boiler standards.
So this is one of the originals.
Actually, I believe this engine was built very early 20th century, 1906 or 8, somewhere around that. So
certainly one of the early ones.
It is definitely one of the early ones. It's not the oldest by any stretch, but it is one of the early ones.
It's beautiful.
It is a pretty amazing thing. It's a relatively small locomotive. Its single purpose is to take people in a coach up the Mount Washington Railway. It has no other purpose. This could not be used on a conventional railroad track at all. Conventional railroads are driven by the wheels, steel-to-steel contact. These are driven by a twin set of cogs that ride in what is essentially a linear bicycle chain.
The reason for it being called the Cog Railway?
Absolutely. This literally pulls itself up the mountain, pushing a coach. The coach and the locomotive are not attached to one another except by a safety chain. These steam locomotives, they weigh approximately 17 tons full.
Wow.
It holds, I think the boiler holds about 300 gallons of water, and the tender holds another 750 or so. So it takes about 1,000 gallons of water and a ton of coal to go up this mountain.
Well, I know that around 27 years ago, we actually rode the Mount Washington Cog Railway, and we went up and went and spent some time up at the top of Mount Washington, which is a fabulous place, and we will be doing a Saturday travel and history tip just on Mount Washington. But I know that we stopped on the way up or the way down to get
I was going to say, we did stop right on the way up to get more
that's
water.
Right. They're supposed to leave with a full tender. They should be able to make it all the way up.
The tender, please tell us.
Oh, okay. The tender is the box that's being pulled by the locomotive. You see there's a car that's being pulled up. It holds the coal in the top, and it's essentially a water tank on wheels. It holds coal and water, both. They stop at Wambach Station, which is about a third of the way up, just to top off the water, to be certain that they have enough water to complete the trip without any issues.
So we stopped on the way up.
Yes.
Okay.
I remember stopping on the way up, but it's just to top it off.
That's all they're doing. They're topping off the water.
Do you know what that entails? Is it a third down or a quarter down, or is it?
A couple of times that I've been up, they only had to take probably 100 and 150 gallons of water, so not a whole lot.
And it's kind of part of the whole
cool.
atmosphere
It's neat to do.
of riding. Just
it is. Riding a steamer is it's a unique and a very intriguing operation.
And you guys never closed because of COVID.
No, we didn't. We actually did fairly well through the COVID situation, other than the state forcing us to reduce our numbers.
But that's fabulous that part of Americana and tourism, even though it was devastating, it wasn't shut down.
Because of the reduction in the use of the trains, we were able to accomplish several years' worth of work in one season, because they had a 7-year plan to replace all of the track on the Mount Washington Cog Railway. It was originally what they call 25-pound track. 25-pound means basically that the track itself weighs 25 pounds per yard of track.
And you showed us that car, that specialty car that they take out.
Yeah, they have a special car that they use for doing track work. It has no bottom to it. It's enclosed. So they were able to work year-round on replacing this track. They replaced all of the track from the base to the summit in one season. except for a very small amount of it.
And you're open all year long. You can ride this up in the winter. And
The diesels go up in the winter.
Okay.
They restricted. They don't run the steamers in the winter. They used to, because that's all they had, and it was very difficult and hard on the equipment. So they retire the steam engines for the winter, and now they run the diesels through the winter. Yeah.
We're talking a winter that most people have not experienced.
And Mount Washington is
brutal.
famous for the world's worst weather.
It's brutal.
So the Cog Railway runs to what's called Wambeck Station during their winter rides. There's a price reduction because you're not actually going to the summit. It would be virtually impossible to summit.
So you go to where we picked up the water that day.
That's right.
So it just goes up and down.
That's right. It's just below tree line. Magnificent views. Spectacular views of the White Mountains on a clear day. It's absolutely beautiful, especially I was going to say especially in the winter, but any season. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
It is really something to be seen either by rail or car, or a lot of people hike all the way to Mount Washington.
They do. We take a lot of hikers. We get a lot of one-ways.
Right.
A lot of people are willing to pay to ride down after that long hike up.
Well, if you're not a hiker, you don't realize it, but sometimes going down is worse than going up.
Yes, it's very strenuous.
Pounding those knees on the way down is, ugh. We've done a lot of hiking with you and your wife Lisa over the years through the beautiful White Mountains.
I have not yet hiked Mount Washington. I'm hoping to be able to do that.
So tell us about the locomotive that's in the shop.
Well, the number 9 is in the shop. Also was just inspected and refurbished. We have a wonderful company out of Massachusetts that's still certified and doing boiler work. They came up and fully inspected these boilers, refurbished what needed to be refurbished. Part of my job there is to manufacture some of the parts that are tired out and worn out on these locomotives. You know, you can't just go to Amazon and buy a part for an 1908 locomotive. So we have all the machinery on site that it's necessary to manufacture a lot of the working parts that do wear out. These things see a lot of wear. They're going up that mountain. It takes a lot of effort. There's a lot of steel-on-steel contact, and things do wear out.
It's a steep grade. I remember that you're
Yeah.
leaning back in that seat.
Oh, yeah.
And looking at the person ahead of you's head.
Yep. It's deceptively
That
steep.
machine's pushing, isn't it?
It
It's
is.
doing
They
its
work
job.
really, really hard. The
Yes.
diesels, these are engines that have over 700 horsepower.
Is it safe to say you could rebuild just about anything except the boiler?
Yeah, I'm not certified to do any boiler work, and I'm okay with that.
Right.
And
Well,
what
you made a comment about boiler explosions. You don't want to have one.
No, that's our greatest concern, of course, would be a travesty like that. But the engineers on the Cog Railway, to get certified as an engineer, you have to have a lot of hours in the cab with a certified engineer, and they have a whole program for that.
You mentioned there was only like one accident.
In the history of the Cog, there's only been one fatal accident.
But it was years ago.
It was in the 1960s. It was a very long time ago. Safety is paramount on this railway.
Of course,
Of course
but
it is, yeah.
there are probably a lot of airlines that would like to have only had one.
Considering the volume of people, because we take up literally hundreds of thousands of people at Mount Washington. I mean,
year.
the volume of people that go up via the Cog Railway is tremendous, and it's because we have such a safe record and we have the capacity to do that.
On an airplane, just private pilot type of thing, the pilot will do a walk around, just check things before you go and all
Yep.
that. I assume they do that kind of thing
Every
on the-
trip. For instance, on the steam locomotives, you must have went up on a
went up
steamer.
yes.
When they stopped at Wambeck, the engineer and the fireman both do a visual and a mechanical check of every moving part that they can access on that train.
Wow.
Just to make sure there's no loose bolts or nuts. The locomotive itself, it's a remarkable thing to ride in on the way up because of the sheer vibration and the noise and the heat.
It
never been
is
loud.
noisy.
It is an incredible
It's a full sensory experience. I'll
Absolutely.
spit that out.
Absolutely. I've ridden on it a couple of times, and I don't know if you've ever experienced riding in something where when you're looking, your eyeballs are shaking. That's how violent it can be. They do a walk-around inspection of that locomotive twice during the trip. They do it before they leave, actually 3 times. They do it before they leave, of course. They do it at Wambeck Station, and then they do it again when they get to the summit.
Well, I know that I've said that we've known you for over 25 years, but I know that we have a picture of you and Lisa and the 3 of us
Oh,
on
goodness.
top of Mount Washington.
Back when I had hair.
Back when you had hair and none of us had any gray hair. It was
Right.
a long
Gray
time
hair.
ago.
Paul
And
was
that
just a
was-
little video thing.
Yep.
I am so honored that we've known you for so long and that we
Yeah.
were actually talking to you about the Cog Railway. We didn't ride the Cog Railway up there, but we
I didn't
certainly
know
took
anything
this
about it at
picture
the-
right beside it.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about it at the time.
Working there. I know that you showed us a couple of parts on this locomotive that you actually designed.
That was a problem that they had. It was a relatively minor one. The piston jacks are They're between the two pistons. There's two pistons that propel this thing up the mountain. There's two on each side because you have a front and a rear drive shaft that operate the cogs, both driven by these pistons that are energized with the steam. Those pistons work against each other. So as one is applying pressure, the other is relieving itself. So
everything's push-pull on this thing.
Everything is. Like I said earlier, it's like a living, breathing creature. It's really remarkable to go through the whole process. I just said, hey, why don't we put in a little extra material here and cover the surface? I'm pretty confident that it's going to take care of it.
This thing's been around for a long time, 152 years as of now. Plus, you are still thinking up and making and applying extra safety measures to what's been running all this time.
As a society, the American craftsman prides himself on his ingenuity and coming up with ideas to solve problems.
Yeah.
That's what we do as a people. We solve problems and we fix them. By doing that, we're constantly advancing and making things better and safer. I know they do that around the world, but I think that the American craftsman is particularly good at that. So many craftsmen take so much pride in the meticulousness of their work and the complexity of their product that they forget that, so many things can be fixed very simply and very easily. American ingenuity, right?
Think it through and do it, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a great place to end this part of our series with David Clifford, a machinist at the Mount Washington Cog Railway. And we will be completing the series in our next nugget.